Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hmm.
Hello.
Can people hear me?
Yes.
I cannot hear people. So let me see why I cannot hear people. I should be able to. Oh, I know why. All right, now I should be able to hear people. Check. I hear myself too, so that way I don't feel weird when I'm talking. How is everybody so far? I think we're still waiting for some more people to come in.
Yeah. Doing good. It's a hot day today.
It is so warm. Oh my
It
God.
is crazy hot.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you see my face gleaming.
You're wearing a beanie even when it's so hot. That's impressive.
So there's a funny story of why my hair is currently not in a presentable way because I'm going to cut and color it later tonight.
Ooh. Oh, very cool.
And anyone that knows anything about hair, you're not supposed to wash it before you do that.
Huh.
So it is currently not washed. It's the beanie. It's gonna make me extra sweaty by the end of this.
Awesome.
Yes.
I thought you had to dye your hair. I thought your hair had to be kind of clean when you dyed it, but no.
No, opposite.
Huh.
Yeah. Especially like because I'm doing red, so I'm bleaching it first.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's because it irritates your scalp more if it's been washed. I think that's a big part of it. But yeah,
So
it
nice
says
and oily is what you go for.
yeah. If you look in any of the boxes, it always says like unwashed hair.
Cool.
I don't know why I did one of these unwashed hair. All right, we'll wait a few more minutes to see if some more people would like to join our little soiree, or it's going to be just a little intimate thing. Oh, there's a Jack.
Here's a Jack, yeah.
Hello, Autumn. Hello, Logans and Sully. Cirque, did you see the interview we did with the Pies?
Oh no, I haven't seen that. How did it go?
It was great. It was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, actually, it was cool.
Cool.
It's like they've
Those
been doing
guys
it
know
for
what they're
forever.
doing, that's for sure.
An hour-long interview. I don't think they've ever done that before.
Yeah, we did.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
Cool.
You've seen their music video, yeah, Cirque?
Mm-mm.
What?
I
Oh,
actually
yeah.
haven't.
It's cool. Yeah.
Oh my God, I gotta go check it out. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm
We talked-
behind on everything here.
We talked about how they managed to make a music video in the time of coronavirus, staying socially distant and everything.
Oh,
And
cool.
so they had to kind of get creative with the angles and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Pretty interesting. We'll give it another couple minutes here, maybe 2 minutes. Can we do it 2 minutes? Just watch Cirque shake her shoulders.
Oh yeah. The waiting shoulders. So you guys ready to rock and perform and everything? Have you already recorded your show, or are you ready to do that? Jack is nodding.
We did ours already.
Yeah.
On
Awesome.
Saturday.
I'm in the process of editing all the different stuff together right now.
Oh, getting fancy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they took multiple different like angles, and then we did separate audio recording so it would sound nice, and then yeah, just all that kind of stuff.
Where did you record it at?
We did it at Sully's house this time. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. You guys are on point. I like that. What about you, Autumn, and your band? If she can hear me.
I think Autumn can hear.
Can you hear me, Autumn?
Yeah.
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 How
We
is it?
haven't recorded anything yet, but I think we're gonna do it this week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So Autumn's band has a lot of members that are staying virtual for the program.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're working out some technical stuff to get some equipment over to Autumn so that she can record and do visuals for the show, and that should be good.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, me and Sully can have an edit off.
Yeah. Oh.
Get my picture-in-picture on. All right, well, let's get started, and if people join as they join, then they join as they join. I think we had a few people join late last time too. So this is a real simple, just kind of an overview more than anything, but for some of you that have done quite a bit of songwriting as well, some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today can kind of fill in the gaps too, right? So even if you already love writing songs and are already kind of cooking along on it, which I think a lot of people in here at least partially write. I know Autumn writes all the time, and Jack writes all the time, and I know Logan, one of the Logans, writes a lot. We're gonna talk about just kind of the basics of what a songwriting process is, and some of that stuff. So, even though you guys are already kind of doing that, there's a lot of information that some other perspectives, some other ideas that you may learn and get some more information on specific stuff. So first thing is, what is a song? Which is kind of a more complicated question to ask than maybe it seems like, because everyone knows, oh yeah, it's a song, it's a song. But is, the stuff Johann Sebastian Bach wrote 400 years ago a song, or is it a composition? Is it an instrumental? And wasn't a difference between an instrumental and a song? Can an instrumental also be a song, or can a song only be something with lyrics? Does a song have to have lyrics to be a song? These are those kind of weird questions that a lot of people ask. And I think for the context of what we talk about when we're talking about songwriting, in sort of now times, right? Like nowadays, it's usually referring to the combination of composition and poetry, and that structure of what a Western song traditionally has been. And the structure is part of the songwriting process too. So those three sort of things kind of meld into what we call a song. You have the lyrics, which are typically iambic pentameter, have a nice flow to them. Usually you pick vowels that sound good when sung, and even when you're a poet, you a lot of times find vowels that sound good when spoken, and there's a rhyming scheme a lot of times. And then there's compositions, which are melodies and chords and these sort of inherent combinations of notes and how they sort of complement each other. And then you have the structure, what part goes where and why does that part go there, right? And there's a lot of, I think, variety on that sort of equation, and different kinds of styles and genres have different elements more emphasized than others in either one of those categories. You can have a metal song that would have lyrics, but the composition is going to be very different. The note choice is going to be completely different, even if there are notes for the vocals. A lot of times there aren't any. And then on the other side, you can have a folk song, which may not have very much complexity in the composition at all. It could be one or two chords, and then the singer just sings over the top of the two chords, and that's the end of the song. So in any kind of genre and any kind of environment that you're writing, it's going to be, there's no one size fits all. But I think if you think about what a song is, the definition, you can say you've got those three sort of elements that your band as a whole would kind of focus on. Now, to actually write a song involves a writing process. And since we have some songwriters in here, Jack, what is your writing process? And I think I already asked you this when we did our interview.
I don't know. Well, for me, it's mainly just like I'll have an idea for something. It used to be that I almost always came up with chords first, and then came up with like words or something afterwards. But now I've gotten to the point where it's like I can sing something. Well, because I just didn't have the ability to like sing something and then be able to play something that went with it on an instrument. But now that I do, I've been doing that a lot. And then like, like I said during the interview, like every 10 songs or so that I write, I'll like one or two of them and show them to the band. And then even then, like sometimes we just don't do those. And then,
Right.
yeah.
So your writing process typically and now has been very like conceptual based, right? So you think of the idea of the song, and then you kind of have the idea of the lyrics start coming to you, and then you start working on the chords. What about
Yeah.
when you get the band together?
So when we were working on new stuff with the band, and it works two ways because Logan C writes a lot of songs too, and so depending on whether it's a song that I started writing or a song that Logan started writing, we have like kind of a different process because when I write a song, it's generally like it's mainly just like the vocal parts, like the lyrics and then like my chords, like just simple stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Logan writes a song, he comes up with like a bunch of different parts and a lot of the times too a vocal melody. And then I backwards write the lyrics. I mean, I guess it's not really backwards, but like I have to reverse the process at least in my personal whatever.
So
And
yeah,
then
so right there, you kind of nailed the two main categories of writing on the head in one band, where a lot of bands have either or a lot of songwriters, I should say, have either or, where you have someone that starts with the lyrics, which is kind of your main approach, and someone that starts with the music, which is kind of Logan's approach. I'm someone that starts with the music too. I usually start with like a guitar riff, and a lot of times I'll be like completely done with the song. I'll have recorded drums, I'll have bass, I'll have every single element of that entire song except lyrics. That'll be the very, very last thing I do because I'm a guitar player first, I'm a singer second, right? So I always think in those terms of like the arrangement and where are different instruments going, what's the space for the vocals, what's the um, dynamics going to be between the verse and the chorus. I get all of that stuff worked out way, way, way before I even think about what the song is even about, which has some pros and cons. Obviously, like if you know what the song's about ahead of time, you can work in some of those emotional contexts of the what the lyrics mean and stuff like that. The advantage is you can kind of get an idea of what the song feels like it should be about before you start writing lyrics because you already have some of those things put into place. Cirke, what is some of the writing processes you've used in your writing career? I know you said you haven't written a lot or for a long time.
Actually, I'm fairly new at writing, compared to many musicians my age. Like I didn't start writing until late 20s. I've done a lot of cover stuff, and I actually, before in my music career, I kind of got irritated with people telling me to write because I was like, but I don't want to write. I just want to sing cover stuff. I just wanted to be, on the stage and sing. And then I found out that it's okay. You don't have to write if you are not ready or if you're not like there or you're not inspired. You don't have to do the writing. Like Jack just said, there are maybe one or two people in the band that writes and then the other guys plays the parts, right? And so my writing started when I emotionally was available for it, actually. So I'm kind of like I'm a very emotional person, and I feel like many of the singers I work with have a lot of emotions stored, right? And they want to express, and partly that's why they became singers. It's because I have all these things I need to get out of my system. Of course, musicians like guitar players and drummers have the same emotional aspect probably, but it's like they don't necessarily have to put words on it in a song, if that makes sense. So
yeah, so I've been writing since I first picked up a guitar at 14. I've been writing the whole time.
Yeah.
But I did not start writing lyrics until, well, I say, okay, well, I did in one band when I was younger, like 18 or so, but I don't really consider myself to have decided to be a singer until like my mid 20s.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really writing from that standpoint of like, I shall be a singer in a band now. I was just kind of like, okay, well, no one else is doing it, so I guess I'll write some lyrics. And they weren't good, and I didn't really focus on that as my art. I was guitar player, so I was, and so you bring that up as far as like the ways I was expressing myself was in those creative ways of combining riffs with the chord structure and the melodic elements that the guitar can bring to that. And I still felt completely validated as far as my expression. Writing those things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a vocalist and a lyricist to be able to write and get that sort of expression out.
Exactly. And like, I might be a singer, but I'm not a lyricist. That is my weakest side. That is writing lyrics. And so for me, actually, I sometimes have lots of O's or oo's in my songs. And that's where all the emotion, they come out right there on that long note, on that vibrato, or in that like, so people express themselves in sounds on a guitar or beats on a drum. And I express myself too via sounds that my voice make. So it doesn't necessarily have to be songs with lots of lyrics for me, although I love lyrics. And also, like, being from a different country, it's different writing in English since it's not my first language. But it is, once a song is done and I feel like my emotions are like written down on paper and I have the melodies and all that, it feels so amazing. So that's why I do it. That's why I because I start with melodies always. Melodies are the first thing that comes, and a few words. And I record them on my phone, and then I sit down with it at a later time when I have time, and I might not be inspired then, right? That's the whole deal. I might not have that same inspiration, but that's when I decide to write. Okay, what could come next here? What do I mean by this? What emotion am I trying to express? So I feel like my songs definitely always comes from some kind of emotion.
That's interesting. You almost write as an instrumentalist. In that way, because the melodies and those types of approaches are typically what like I will start with, because to me, like the melody is the largest part of the song. Besides the overall feel of the song, the melody is by far the most important element of it. And I think a lot of songwriters can overlook that because especially songwriters that have words come so fast. And I've worked with a lot of different songwriters. I worked with a phenomenal lyricist. She's a great singer too, but just in terms of writing, like what her big strength was lyrics. She could just write lyrics. Like she could write a song just instantly. And we'd sit down, and I was her producer for a couple of years, and we'd sit down and start working out some stuff. I'm like, okay, well, this is a cool direction. Like, you got any lyrics for it? She's like, 1 second. And then they're perfect. And I'm like, what? And as me, I'm terrible with lyrics. They're weakest part of my writing.
Yeah.
And I actually had her help me with some lyrics on a number of occasions because I knew she was such a good lyricist. I'm like, I am struggling with these lyrics. Can you maybe help me with some magic lyrics you got over there? But yeah, so it's interesting that still kind of falls into those two categories, right? Like, there's a lot of people that love words, and there's a lot of people that love melody. And the job of the songwriter is really to try to combine those two things and focus on their strengths, and there's nothing better or worse about either one of those. But, you have someone like Bob Dylan, who was not the greatest singer ever, medium melodies and stuff like that, but his lyrics are revered as some of the best songs ever written because of the words he used, So cool.
Exactly.
Collaborating. Let's talk about that a little bit, because this is a part of the writing process is working with other people, and we just touched on that a little bit, and what that really means in the songwriting process, and especially given the context of being in a band, which most the program is mostly about being in bands, and when and not every band is going to have a songwriter, like a person that is like, I shall write our songs.
Mm.
You know, like Jack and Logan are songwriters, and they will bring things to the band, and you know, Sully and other Logan are totally cool with that. They you know, they function, they get their expression in different ways, and like you said earlier, like not everyone needs to write in a band. It's, and I've been in bands, I'm in bands now where I'm not part of the writing process, and it's not so much that you have to write in every band that you're in. I think even if you have some experience writing, it just kind of helps you see music in a slightly different way. So if you're in a band where you're not the writer, you end up becoming someone that supports the writer, because you know kind of what they went through. You're like, I feel you,
Yes.
man. Let me just help you out, whatever you need, you know. But you know, if your band doesn't have that dedicated songwriter, where do you start? Like, how do you get the ball rolling? Like, in a fully collaborative effort, it gets a little bit more mushy, a little bit more complicated. But the cool thing is you get so many more people involved, you end up solving all these problems a lot faster than you would if it was a dedicated songwriter trying to figure all this out by themselves, right? So with that, I you know, I guess just my early advice for anyone listening for the easiest approach is just start playing stuff. Just start like messing around with things and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. And as a vocalist, just start humming some melodies. If you hear like, oh, you know, that bass thing you played, that really clicked with my vocal thing. And it's really a lot of trial and error. And sometimes it can be like the guitar player has a riff. Well, that's a lot of songs start. Hey, I was
Yeah.
playing over the weekend. I came up with this riff. Cool, let's hear it. And then everyone starts just jamming out on it. And I've been in some collaborative bands like that where it starts with like one piece and then everyone adds everything. It can be really cool in that sense. Eventually, someone does have to still write the lyrics and stuff like that. So somebody does that. But sometimes there's bands where, you know, even the lyrics are collaborative. A former Live It Out Loud band, actually, that I ended up working with for a little while longer, they had a fully collaborative lyrical process because they had this concept album that they wanted to do. So it was like, it was over the top, but I was so into it. It was so awesome. They had like this, I'm trying to remember what the story was. It was like this, like a carnival in the middle of nowhere. And it was this post-apocalyptic, like wasteland zombie thing. But like, there was like fully fleshed out characters and regions. And that guy would probably say this because he's from that area. And like, we would sit for hours just working out all the details, and then everyone boil it down into lyrics. So rhyming things, you know, all the poetry part, but it can be pretty much any process you want, you know. So that still plays into the writing process as a whole.
Mm.
Have you been in some collaborative efforts like that, Cirke?
Yeah, like I would say, having a little hard time with lyrics. Sometimes it's actually been more beneficial being in a collaboration, especially with someone who's really strong lyrically, so that I might have some really great ideas for melodies, and then, oh, what about these lyrics? And once it's almost like we then go on, or how do you say that? Go off on each other, almost like, or is that how you say it? I don't know. Like, it's like someone comes up with one line and then I come up with the next line, and it's just rolling, right?
Yeah,
rather than me sitting there being stuck for hours because I can't come up with any words. So yeah, definitely. It's actually been fun sometimes to collaborate with instrumentalists, because since I do start with melodies myself, and I like putting my hands on the piano myself and figuring out where I want to go chord wise, and then the lyrics come. It's been challenging for me to only take care of the lyrics, like to be the one that wrote the lyrics. And then I've sometimes asked the instrumentalist, and they've been like, I've never had a singer ask me about that before. Like, I don't know, like, what do you think we should say here? And I'm like, well, what do you think? The first word that pops up, come on, help me out here.
Yeah.
And then actually it's been fun, because then I can say, and by the way, the thing you did on the piano, what if you did this instead? So it's more like a, collaborative effort all the way around. So it's been fun to try, definitely, working like that. And I like that. There are some people that you work with, and there's some people you don't work with. And that's just, you learn that by trying it out, right? I'm sure you've been in some collaboration where you were like, oh, this is not going to happen again.
Yeah. You know,
Right?
being with the right people is definitely beneficial, but even, you
Yeah.
know, sometimes like expanding your horizons with people you wouldn't normally think would work, you end up learning some interesting things. Like, you know, I've been in some projects where that, you know, I come up in a rock background, if anyone didn't know that. But I've been in country groups, R&B groups, metal groups, which isn't necessarily my jam, but like I end up learning a lot of stuff that I never would have thought about, collaborating even in the writing process in some of those groups, or working with songwriters that have already come up with stuff that I wouldn't have thought of in the first place. So I kind of get inside the heads of other people and add that information to my own songwriting library. Because one of the things about songwriting is it's not just about becoming inspired and then putting down the absolute authority of your inspiration upon parchment, and unleashing this beautiful piece of work unto the world. It's a lot of problem solving, really. It's, you know, it's you come across like, okay, well, I got this verse, it's really cool, and I got this chorus, it's really cool, but they don't really go together. Maybe they're two different songs. And then you just, you know, go off on that. And then you come back later, you're like, nah, they're not really two different songs. Maybe I just need to change the tempo a little bit. Oh, that's working, you know? And then you kind of come up with like, oh, maybe there's a pre-chorus that can connect the two. Oh, okay, I'll just do these two chords and sing like one line, and then boom, we're in the chorus. Oh, that works. Great.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so much of that involved in not just songwriting, but also the arranging part, which a lot of times falls on the songwriter or songwriters, depending on, you know, because like somebody's got to lead the ship. And typically, if there's a songwriter in the band, they will kind of want to get that finished, you know, cohesive song from beginning to end, because a songwriter is crazy like that. Their eyes going to be twitching in the corner just until that the song starts and goes and then ends, you know? So yeah. Let's talk a little bit about working with a producer, which is similar to collaborating. But have you ever worked with a producer, Cirke?
I have a few couple of times, but mostly in other bands where I wasn't the main lead singer. I've done it one time on my own. So that's a new thing for me too.
Okay.
I've mostly just written a song and taken it to the studio or taken it to a producer, and then he has produced the music, arranged the song, you know, but not necessarily worked from the beginning with a producer, no.
So there's a lot of different degrees of working with a producer. There's producers that will work alongside you as like collaborative songwriters. Excuse me, had a burp. Which I've done a little bit of, working with some younger artists and stuff like that, and some other artists. Mostly, you know, as a guitar player, like it and someone who understands arrangement and songs, it's easier for me to work that back end out while they kind of get inspired on what the front end is going to look like, especially for someone that doesn't really play another instrument. So that's where working with a producer can be good if you are just a singer and you don't really play much in the way of an instrument. I think most people probably do the next category of a producer, which is get somebody involved kind of after you've already done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You've got probably either the whole song done or close to done. Then you bring in a producer to say, it's all wrong, you need to change everything.
Yeah, I've tried that.
And you know, and that can be good, especially if you trust the producer. If you look at their body of work and you're like, okay, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. And you know, some of it can be pretty brutal, some of it can be pretty hard to swallow. It can be man, I have a long story about that. I'll give you guys the abridged version of this. There's a okay, we'll start a little bit farther back. My band was on tour. We had just released this album. We were all super stoked on it. We didn't work with a producer. It was all self-produced, and we got it out, and we were like, this album's awesome. We love it. And then we did a West Coast tour, and one of the places we stayed at in San Diego was a friend of a friend who happened to be a world famous producer. and he just had a big house, and he just liked hosting bands. So I mean, he's worked with like Gwen Stefani and like just huge names, like all kinds of people. So we didn't really know what to do, but we're like, well, this could be cool. Like, we're gonna meet like a really famous producer. Maybe he wants to like work with us. And we were there for like 3 days because it was kind of that like lull in the tour. So we were there for quite a while. And then like on a later day, we were all hanging out, and our guitar player, who's much more forward than I am, she's like, "So you're gonna listen to our album or what?" And I'm like,
You go,
and
girl.
he goes, all right. Because that's, that's what he does for a living. He listened to 25 seconds and then stopped it, gave a 15-minute lecture on why the album sucked so far. Not in a bad way, in a very like very constructive criticism, matter of fact kind of way. He wasn't being mean about it at all. But I mean, you just came out with a record. You don't want to find out that there was a whole bunch of things that you did wrong, both in songwriting and arranging and all these, kinds of little detail things. And they were nuancy things. They weren't like big, sweeping, giant things, but that's what a producer does. They look at those nuancy details that honestly, like, some of the things he pointed out, I didn't even notice. I'm like, oh yeah, that does suck. Why would we let that be on the record? Because we didn't know. We didn't notice. It's not like you come into the world knowing everything that there is to know about everything. And because we self-produced it, we brought in a really great engineer, and he helped us with some stuff. But I mean, a producer is supposed to know more than that, more than just how to record a record. They know why the record is there and what it's trying to say, and what the audience is, what audience you're trying to reach, and why all the stuff is even happening in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really hard to see as the artist, because as the artist, you're so focused on making that expression and making that statement with the things that you wrote. It's really hard to separate yourself from that, which I think is why it's really good if you get the chance to work with a producer you trust to do so, because it's humbling, but it's such a great learning experience, because some of the things that you learn when you do that, you can anticipate for the next time, and also kind of just get a really good firm grasp on why you're writing the songs that you're writing, and get your hands around that a little bit more. So on that, let's move on to people that don't want to write and what it's like to be a side guy. Side guy is just the term that gets used a lot. I'm a side guy in 2 bands right now. And the kinds of ways that you express yourself in a band, even if you're not the songwriter or you don't want to be a songwriter, a lot of times come down to the individual parts you play in the band, which are almost always subjective. There's almost always a little wiggle room one way or another as an instrumentalist even as a vocalist. If you're, like you, Cirke, you've been a not main singer in a band.
Yeah.
Which means you kind of get told what you're going to sing, right?
Yeah.
But you still got to put your own stamp on it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And how did that go?
Yeah, that's fun. Like, that's the fun part, right? And I'll say I've been in bands with really good friends, like that are I'm their side guy, and yeah, I'm singing with Jessica right now, and yeah, you all know her, and she, not only are we really, really good friends, so it's easy because I can read her, I know exactly if she looks at me with one look, oh, not that note, that's the kind of relationship we have. So there's not necessarily many words that needs to be exchanged. But also in her writing process, if she needs help with harmonies or new ideas or something, I'm always there to help her out with that. So I've written a lot of harmonies for her songs. And so I haven't been writing the main stuff for her songs, but then I come in and say, hey, what about this harmony, right? Or maybe she already has a harmony and I go, yeah, what if we change that one note or something? So that's kind of the way you can add. And also I do percussion for her too. So yeah, like, you're adding, the creme on the creme de la creme, or how do you say that? The creme in the coffee, or like, it's the things that makes the songs really powerful when you're on a stage. It's that it's not just exactly as it is on the recording, but it's like, this person is good at this, let her shine at this, and this great guitar player has this other riff that's even better, stuff like that.
The band, one of the main bands I'm in, has been around for 20 years, and they have a pretty decent following at this point. And so some of those legacy songs that they've been playing for forever are very specific. Everyone's heard them for 20 years, but I still get to play the solos however I want to play the solos, because I'm the guitar player.
Exactly.
And those moments, even though I'm playing a song that literally almost as old as me, like I think one of the songs we play, oh geez, I'm older than I thought. I would have been like 14, so I wasn't even a musician yet. Funny story, actually, one of those songs, I think the oldest one, I used to do this YouTube series, and I'm not telling you what it is because of people going looking for it, because it was like 11, 12 years ago, something like that, a long time ago. So I was but a wee middle-aged, mid-20s person. I'm middle-aged now. But I would go look for random music, and at the time it was really hard to find like royalty-free stuff, right? They didn't have websites like they do for it now, and so you kind of had to and YouTube was cracking down at that exact time of people using just whatever music you wanted. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to find some bands that are less famous that are probably not looking for it. So I actually used an Abney Park song in one of my videos that 9 years later I had to learn how to play to be in the band that I used, which I thought was funny.
Wow, that's cool.
But but that song actually has a guitar solo in it, and I love playing that guitar solo because I play it absolutely nothing like the record.
Yeah.
At all. The rest of the guitar parts I play almost exactly the same. But in terms of the writing process, another thing about being the side guy is those parts are ambiguous until they're on the record. They're not set in stone until they're recorded. And most of the time, especially if you're in a band which is like named after someone, right? Like if it's like Jessica Lynn is, she's got her, this is a solo project. It's the Jessica Lynn show, right? And so she has a vested interest in everything being a very certain way. And anyone that's has a project like that is like that. But for the most part, almost all the time, they just want it to be good. It's not so much that it has to be specific. No one's going to write every single part. That's your job. Even if you're not aspiring to be a songwriter, you should at least be, if you're a bass player, be a bass part writer.
Yeah.
If you're a guitar player, you should be a guitar part writer and understand what it takes to come up with those parts in as short a period of time as you can. Because sometimes, like, if you get, if you become a session musician or you get called in to be a session musician, you don't have a lot of time to write all that stuff. I did a record one time where the producer had fired the two other guitar players in the band because they couldn't play well enough to be on the record that he was trying to hold the band to be. So he was like, I think you should get rid of that guitar player. They fired him, brought in a different guy. And the producer was like, he's still not going to cut it, man. So they fired him. And then they called me just to come and record last minute. And so I showed up at the studio and banged out the whole record in 3 hours.
Wow.
And that's not a pat on my back. It's just when you do the process of writing for the instrument that you play enough times, you start to see these patterns and how they're put together. I don't remember if any of it was crazy, over the top, amazing, special. I didn't write the songs. I only had to write my parts. So that's easier for sure. But as a side guy, that, for the band that I'm in, that I really, really care about, that was a session thing. I will spend time to put my mark on those things, those solos that we record, and I'll put my own little stamp in there. And that's the parts that I get really excited about, obviously, because it's me. And I'm a narcissist because I'm a musician. We're all narcissists. That's why we became musicians. We're super into what we do. Does anybody have any questions? That's kind of the gist of how a songwriting process comes together for various things. Anybody have any specific questions, problems, ideas, suggestions? We're a quiet group.
Yeah.
Man, they're just soaking up all the knowledge and being like, we got it, man. Thanks, bro.
Got it. We're done. Well, I wanted to ask if anyone out there who writes, do you ever feel do you ever get stuck? And what do you do when you get stuck? Because I choose to believe that there will be people out there that get stuck in their songwriting, right?
Oh, everybody.
And like I feel like you said earlier, Skye, that songwriting is very much about problem solving. And it's interesting to hear from different people that writes already how they overcome the stuck feeling. Like what do you do? Like for me, for example, it's with lyrics, right? A lot. Like if I can't find the right word that feels right, I sing na 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 until I have the right word or the right word. You know, like there's no right or wrong words. There are your words. Or if I feel like, oh man, that melody sounds so much as the last song I wrote, or that melody is too country for me. I'm not a country singer. I wanted more to be something else. Or so for me, it's been the reason I'm saying this is because for me, that's been a huge hurdle for me to get over. And that's why it took me so long to really start writing, because I wanted it to be freaking perfect, excuse me, my language, every time. I wanted it to be a hit every time. So I went into writing with, well, if it's not a hit, I'm not going to finish it. So I never allowed myself to finish enough songs to actually learn how to write songs. You know, I'm still learning. You know, I believe we are an entire life, right? So it would just be cool to hear from people out there what you guys do when you get stuck. I feel like believing or remembering how it was to be back on the playground, like to have fun with it and put in a silly word. Sometimes I put in like, you know, a body part or like a mirror or a furniture in where it does not make sense at all. And then just let it sit there, or something that rhymes, and let it sit there until the third time when you get back to the song, oh, there it is. There's the word, you know, and then you replace it, right?
I have what I call a vocal mumble.
Oh yeah.
I just kind of like go through different vowels and like consonants and like.
There you go.
And I'm really just trying to isolate like what the flow is going to be, because I always try to pick words that seem like they make sense in the phrase that I'm writing them for.
Yes.
Which is harder than just writing the words, because a lot of times, like if I do it that way, I always pick words that don't flow well, or too many syllables, or some other problem. So I typically, one of the reasons why I wait on the lyrics is so that I can kind of mumble along a little bit, enough times to kind of get an idea of how many syllables there should be, really what the melody is. Because even if you come up with a melody, sometimes you can split that melody up into different syllables or not. You know, you can just one word.
Yeah, play around with the cadence of.
Exactly. You know, there's no saying that you have to have a word for every note that there is in the melody. And so that's why I think it is kind of helpful to do the na 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 or mumble words, just so you can kind of get the metering of the phrase as well as the melody, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I also sometimes like actually going against my flow. Like I have a tendency, I'm a vocalist, I like the long notes, right? That's my favorite part of singing. And then if I see, okay, this song is turning into a slow song and there's long notes, or there's like, I hold every note out, and then challenging myself every time I want to hold a long note, I'd make it short. Or every time I want to go up, for example, if I'm having started with the melody, every time I want to go up higher, I go low. Every time I want to go low, I go higher, to challenge myself, to get myself into new patterns of writing that I wouldn't normally just go into, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Like I have like a very specific phrase that I almost, you know, set of notes melody wise that I almost start with every time. I'm like, nope, can't do that one. One other thing that I'll throw out there as while we're on the subject, as an exercise you can do if you're someone that plays an instrument, is, you know, if you're sitting there trying to work out the melody, as a singer, since I play an instrument first, I a lot of times will put the chord structure on loop, you know, whatever parts of the songs that are done are on loop, and then just play guitar and try to find sympathetic notes that seem like parts of the scale that I want my voice to be in, and find those little hooky parts of the melody and that part of the scale that seems like it's where I want my voice to be. for that song. And then that really helps me kind of isolate where I'm going to put my, melodic structure, because if you find sort of just at least the starting point, a lot of times the rest of it comes really quick, because then it's just a matter of like theme and variation, right? You've got this first 3 notes and you automatically know that that's going to probably happen again at some point, especially in a chorus. And so you can kind of play off of just those first things that you kind of find with something else. That way it kind of takes it out of like, I am trying to sing this at the same time as trying to find these notes. And it also kind of helps me, it's just because I'm a guitar player mostly, as a visual aid, because I can see the distance between the notes and I know what notes are in between, and I can kind of see like, oh, okay, that's 3 frets up. And I think that in my head because I'm a guitar player.
Yeah.
But yeah, that can help if you're stuck too. If you're playing an instrument like a piano, even if you don't play an instrument, you can just poke at it until you find notes that sound good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I do that sometimes too.
Jack,
like just put my hands on there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to call out Jack. Jack, what do you do when you get stuck?
Well, I kind of went through that. I got stuck like really for the first like real time, kind of near the beginning of like when everything started getting shut down. Cause I kind of definitely write, I feel like, more from like whatever emotions I'm feeling, and then like let whatever happens after that come through. And so because I just wasn't doing anything or like having any experiences, there were like no emotions that I was feeling. And so luckily the good thing for me is that at least with our band, we don't necessarily, or at least a few months ago, we didn't necessarily have to come out with anything new or anything. So I had the luxury of like taking a break, which I think, at least for me, that helps a lot. Because if you're trying to force out a song, it's not going to end up, I'd say it's very rarely going to end up like, exactly where you want it to be. Like it might end up being great, but it's not going to be maybe your best work or something like that. So I just kind of like took a break from writing for a while, and kind of like just let myself like reset, because I'd been writing like all the time after that. And then I noticed that when I come back, I kind of looked at it slightly different. So I was able to kind of maybe do some more things. And the first couple songs I wrote when I came back, I really didn't like. And so I just kind of kept trying to push myself to write songs, knowing that they were probably going to end up not being all that great. And that's another thing I do too. I've had like smaller blocks in the past, and so I would just like write for the sake of writing, like almost like as practice, or like maybe one day I was like, okay, this song's not going to go anywhere, but let's see if I can write something that maybe works more with visual imagery or something like that, like different songwriting skills that you can work on. And then, it's not like the song's going to go anywhere, or it might. You got to keep an open mind to that too. And then the great part about that too is that if now you have a whole bunch of songs that you don't really like, or there's something missing about them or stuff like that, but then you have extra material to draw from later. Because plenty of times I've wrote something, liked it at first, but then kind of like fell off and just really didn't want to like use it for anything. And then a couple months down the line, I'd be like, oh crap, part of that song would work perfect in this song. Yeah. And then so you just have a lot of, and that's another great thing too. If you've written a lot, I sometimes, when I was not really sure what to do, I'd go back through a lot of my old, because I'm almost done like with my second songwriting book right now. So like a few times I've gone back to my first one, and just looked at all the stuff I had in there, like, like the 9 songs that I didn't end up showing to the band or like wanting to do. And even if you don't use anything from that, you might see an idea you had for something and feel like now you're better prepared to write something about that, or just like a single line or something. Yep. So it's just kind of like a lot of little different things that kind of like keep you going. But
Yeah, there's
I
a
don't
lot.
know.
There's a lot of really great advice in there. You know, like you said, with the going back through your old book and looking at old ideas. One other thing, like the singer in my band, I don't know how he comes up with songs. I mean, full length record every year, 12 to 15 fully, and that's just the ones that end up on the record. You know, there's 20 to 25 he writes, you know, every year. And one of the things he did, you know, well, has been, is exactly what you said, Jack, just getting in the habit and just practicing songwriting. You know, even if you don't use something, it could come into play later. You know, his process is a little bit different than a lot of people's. What he'll do is start working on a beat and start working on the music part, and then go through all of his lyrics that he writes completely separately and sees which lyrics match the emotional context of that song, you know. But to do that, he's got to have a giant library of lyrics, so he just writes lyrics all the time. And some of the lyrics might not even get used for years after he writes them, you know, but they just hadn't have the right set of music come along quite yet to fit that piece of the puzzle. And I do the same thing as with writing pieces of music, you know, like I almost never, you know, flesh out a full lyric song, but I will come up with some chord structures or little melodies or little pieces of the structure of a song. And I'll do that every day. Like if I pick up a guitar, I'm almost always writing something immediately. That's just the way I've always been. And, you know, and the exact same thing, like you said, Jack, happens where you have all of these pieces of things that make sense later. You don't necessarily, I mean, you write this, you know, little riff, you're like, all right, cool. And then you record it on your phone, and then 6 months later, you're like, I don't know what to do. And you go back through, you're like, oh, this riff was actually kind of cool. I don't remember it being this cool. Let's work with this a little bit, you know, and you suddenly get re-inspired by yourself in a different way, which sounds like that would not help you get unblocked, but actually it's surprisingly effective. So yeah, I'm going to
Yeah,
call
that's
out.
why that when we, sorry, I
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, that's why, like, I feel like many people also talk about when a song comes to you and comes through, you just got to let it through. It doesn't matter if it's a chorus or it's just one line of a verse. If it keeps coming up, you know, that it's meant to be channeled through you, right? It's like going with the flow and just, okay, I'm creative. This is coming to me. I'm going to record it and I don't know what to use it for. And I'm not inspired to write anymore, but I'm going to keep it for later. Right? Yeah. Like not judging whatever comes up, even though you might look at it going, what am I going to use this for right now? Just letting it come through and then saving it. Yeah. I like that.
Almost all the best material I've ever come up with has been at times where I haven't been trying, you know,
Yeah.
where it's not, and there's a lot of times where you do have to, you know, especially if you work in the music industry in any kind of capacity, you're always going to end up having to write something immediately or finish a song right away, or you got to go, you know, record guitar parts tomorrow for that song because the record is due the next day. And so then you record this solo, you're like, that solo is kind of crap, but you know, it's too late. But then you listen to it later, you're like, it wasn't too bad. And that kind of cyclical thing happens all the time. And so when you take advantage of the times where it's not under pressure, where it's not, you know, you got to do it right now, those are going to be the times, as a songwriter at least, where you're going to find the most honest and genuine stuff, the stuff that's going to be most, where you're sitting with your, you know, guitar or piano or whatever you play and just being like, yeah, this song is pretty cool. And no one has heard it yet. Which I always think about as a fun thing for myself. Like when I write a new song, I always think this song is awesome and no one has ever heard it other than me because I wrote it.
That is cool. I like that.
Cool. I wanted to call out Autumn too, because I know Autumn does a lot of writing.
Yeah, she does.
Autumn, what is your writing process like, and what do you do when you get stuck?
My writing process is usually like lyrics, and then and then I try to figure out the chords, and then the melody usually comes with the chords. Me personally, when most of the time when I have like the chords and melody first, then the lyrics aren't as good. So I usually do the lyrics first, but that's just my personal, yeah.
So what do you do when you get
Cool.
stuck? Like if you're working on something and it's just not coming together, what are some of the things you do to re-inspire yourself?
I usually just like take a break and then come back to it. Yeah, just like take my mind off it, and then usually there's some new ideas.
That's a good idea. Jack talked about that a little bit too. And what Jack was talking about was like a longer term break. But I think also it's important to remember that sometimes just a couple hours or a couple days is enough to, get your mind around what it is you're working on and come back to it with a little bit of a fresh idea or, fresh perspective on what it is you're looking at. One of the funny parts about the writing process in my band is Robert, the songwriter, anyone that's written a song will know this process. He will have already listened to, because it's a recording process that we do as a writing process also. So he'll record his vocals and he'll record the beats and the other instruments or the basic, sort of idea of the song. And then we record our parts in the writing process. That's how my band works. And so sometimes I will like add a hook or add a little melody. I'm being blown out by the sun. There we go. Add a hook or add a little melody, and Robert will look at it and be like, I don't know, man. I don't know about that melody. That hook it's taking over something. I don't know if it's working or not. And he's like, oh, I'll leave it in. I'll listen to it later. And then, a couple days go by and he'll message me. He's like, that hook is like the best part of the song. I love it so much. But part of it is the perspective, right? Like it's not just, and I'm using this as an example. It's not a perfect example, but it is an example about perspective and the way you listen to music that is your own is flawed inherently. It is not going to be obvious to you what exactly is happening in the song because you're too close to it. You made it, one of the really fun things as you have, as musicians continue to write over a couple decades is if you go back and listen to something you first wrote or maybe some of the, second and third things, some of the things you really kind of caught your stride on writing, you go back and listen to those now, you're like, those are so good. I can play guitar so awesome. I rule because you just don't remember it that way. You don't, and like stuff that you make now, okay, as an artist, I think everything, and this is just the artist part, could be better, right? You get done with it, you're like, it's fine, I guess. It's good enough. I guess this is what we can't afford to keep re-recording stuff. And you kind of got to give up at a certain point and let it go and you
got to punch perfectionism in its face.
That's a good point. So perfectionism can be a real problem with songwriting. Cirke, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I one day the something about the three P's came to me, like play, punch perfectionism in the face, and practice, and then produce too. But then I'm not going to talk about that since we've always talked about that. But yeah, it's like, remember to have fun and play with whatever you write, right? Have fun and be a free, messy kid, whatever that means. Like go back to the playground and just allow yourself to even play and sing ugly and use those fake words or na, whatever it is, and just have fun channeling whatever is coming through. And then I always say to the people I work with, punch perfectionism in the face. And it's very much because I'm a perfectionist and I spin and I go over and over and over the songs again and again and again and again and again until they're almost dead because I changed them so much then I go back and listen to the first recording and then that was the magical one, right? I feel like in today's day and age, we have a tendency as people in this society that we want to make things perfect. Like it's about being perfect. It's about the goal, the end all be all rather than the process. And I believe that if we never allow ourselves to make any mistakes, if everything has to be perfect, then we're never going to learn anything. Like talking about the perspective, what if there never is actually a stuck moment? What if there only is learning opportunities or learning situations? Like what if every time you're stuck, you're supposed to learn something from it? And whenever you play that same chord wrong every time, and you're recording and you're like, oh my goodness, why can't I get it right? Maybe it's because you have to stop and listen that extra note. Maybe you accidentally played a seventh or even a major seventh. Sometimes, you know, like it's like, oh, maybe it's because the chord needs to be that. Does that make sense? Like sometimes when we play something wrong or sing something wrong, it can be magic, complete magic, and we can learn so much from it. So yeah, like the perfectionist needs to kind of take a break in that creative process, if you ask me, because it just only will get in your way. Yeah, that's basically what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Awesome. I totally agree. I think, you know, it's the worst time to try to be perfect is in the initial stages of creating a song.
Yeah.
You know, you
Agreed.
want to like get out of the song's way as much as you can and let the song, you know, the way I visualize this, just for my own, I'm gonna get a little spiritual, guys. Not really spiritual, but just from my own perspective, like the way I feel about a song is that it's already there. It's already been written. It's already in existence. I just got to go figure out where it is. I just have to cut away all the bits that isn't the song and get to the core of what the song is at the basic level. And to me, that basic level is not even the chord structure, even just the bass line. Just what are the root notes and what is the melody? I don't even care about the words in my own head, you know, until I creative process wise get my head around that, just that core idea. It's really hard for me to move on from that. The thing that can make it terrible is trying to make that sound perfect and be insanely perfect the very first time you try to find what that core is, because it's not going to be. You're going to need to change a note here, need to change a note there. But if you're looking for it being perfect rather than looking for why this song exists in the first place or what emotion it is you're feeling that you're trying to get out, then you're not really doing service to the song that in my mind already exists.
I totally agree with that. It's like the song is ready to come out, but are you ready to let it?
Yeah,
Right?
and you can get in your own way real easily
Yep.
in that particular space. All right, well, I think we've covered pretty much everything songwriting, and I hope you guys learned a thing or two and maybe gleaned an extra perspective that you can then, you know, teach me and Cirke about later.
Please do. I'm always here to learn. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear you guys' songs this year. I know it's going to be great, and I look forward to the next time I see you guys on the stream.
Yay.
And thank you, Cirke, for being here and
Thank you.
being awesome and such an inspiration to everybody and being rad.
Well, Skye, so are you, and so are you guys out there. Thank you for sharing your stories and how you write. That's really inspiring. So thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.